Honourable guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear delegates, welcome to the European Mission Soil Week. We are delighted that you have joined us here in Madrid for these vital discussions around the future of our planet.
Did you know that more than 60% of EU soils are unhealthy? The EU's Mission Soil is a groundbreaking initiative, establishing 100 living labs and lighthouses to drive the transformation towards healthy soils by 2030. The Mission Soil is advancing research and innovation, soil health monitoring, and soil literacy, communication, and citizen engagement to protect and restore our soils. Join us at the European Mission Soil Week from the 21st to 23rd of November 2023, organised by the European Commission and EU-funded projects, hosted by INIA-CSIC at the Spanish National Research Council in Madrid, Spain, under the Spanish Presidency of the EU Council. Designed for researchers, policymakers, farmers, foresters, spatial planners, land managers, businesses, and for you, it's the perfect platform to discover the latest research activities, learn from experts, and collaborate for healthier soils and a greener future. Don't miss out. Go to EuropeanMissionSoilWeek2023.com to register now.
Ladies and gentlemen, hello, good morning. It is lovely to see you here and welcome to the European Mission Soil Week 2023. What a delight to be here in Madrid at such a beautiful, glamorous venue to talk about the challenges and the possibilities ahead when it comes to everything to do with the health of our soils. Welcome. And welcome if you are joining us here in the room, and also welcome to the hundreds of delegates that we have joining us online. It's an absolute delight to have you with us. Thank you for making the time. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Sasha Twining. I am your host and your moderator for the next couple of days. My job is to ensure that you get everything you need out of the next few days, because goodness me, have we got a packed program for you. So much content, so much to talk about, and so much to discuss. And it's not just about what you will see on the screen or hear from the stage. It's also about the people that have been brought together, because in this room we have farmers. Raise your hand if you're a farmer. We have researchers. We have land managers, landowners. We have foresters. Thank you. We have foresters. We have policymakers, those involved in policy. Some people are putting their hands up more than once. It is a very, very complex area and complex environment. But the joy of this week is that this is an opportunity for everybody to come together, find that common ground, those challenges that everybody faces, and work out how to move forward together. Now, before we start, a little bit of housekeeping for you. If you wouldn't mind taking out your phone for me. Thank you. Take out your phone. Make sure it is on silent. Yep, because believe me, in a room like this, if somebody's phone goes off, you don't want to be that person. So make sure your phone is on silent. And then if we can have the next slide, please. What I would like you to do is make sure you're connected to the Wi-Fi, if you haven't already done so. And then we are using Slido for questions, as well as microphones in the room. So if you prefer to submit your questions via Slido, you can do so. And if you are watching us online, please, if you go to Slido, and then what you need to do is use the hashtag ESMW2023. Or if you're here in the room, you can use the QR code, and that will take you directly to the area to ask questions. You will also see that there are different rooms when we come to the breakouts. as we go through the next couple of days. Right, is everybody ready? Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to start this week of information exchanges and welcome our first speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Vice President for International Affairs at the Spanish National Research Council. Please welcome Francisco Javier Moreno Fonteres.
Good morning, everyone. Let me first welcome my colleagues, policymakers, researchers, and many other things probably at the same time. That's why several of them raised their hands in several occasions at the beginning. Mr. Golubievsky, Head of Cabinet of the European Union Agriculture Commissioner, Mrs. Raquel Lloti, Secretary-General for Research of the Ministry of Science and Innovation of Spain, and Mr. José Antonio Sobrino, Deputy Director-General of Agriculture and Means of Production at the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food of Spain. And of course, welcome to all of you to this event. My role here is actually very simple. I'm just here to welcome you all and tell you just a couple of things about where we are and what is it that we do here at this institution, CSIC. The Spanish National Research Council, Consejo Superior de Investigaciones Científicas, that's what CSIC stands for, is actually the largest research performing organization in Spain, which depends directly from the Ministry of Science and Innovation to become Ministry of Science, Innovation and Universities today in a couple of hours. As this type of institution that we are, we actually join within our ranks and files more than 120 research institutes performing research in the different areas of knowledge. We are organized in 3 big areas, which we call matter, life, and society, and altogether bring more than 6,000 researchers, more than 6,500 technicians helping this research being actually done, and more than 1,500 people helping us actually manage the organization, which is probably the largest and more challenging task of all. One key event in the recent history of CSIC, actually starting a little bit more than 2 years ago, was actually the fact that we merged with 3 previously independent national research centers. One basically focused on ocean research, the other one on geological and mining research, and finally, and very importantly today, another one, the INIA, focused specifically on agricultural and forestry research. And I'm mentioning this last National Institute as the most important one today, because they are actually the ones that bring us all here today. They are the Spanish representative at the Soil Mission of Horizon Europe, and they are responsible for organizing this fantastic event that is bringing you all here for the next days in our premises. INIA is actually one of the key pillars of research on agriculture and specifically on soils, but it's not the only one. There were already other institutes within CSIC that were already conducting research in similar areas. So the fact that INIA has joined CSIC has made us even a stronger actor, a stronger player in the domain of research on matters related to soils. There is no question that that research on soils, it's a key aspect in anything that we want to do regarding the green transition, and in anything having to do with some of the most central challenges that our societies are facing today. This is something that is quite obvious, and in principle, we can assume that scientific work is a very straightforward answer to try to respond to those challenges. It's kind of something quite intuitive to think that scientific knowledge can actually produce tips and clues on ways on how to respond to those challenges. But the issue becomes a little bit more problematic when we realize that anything having to do with soil policy is strongly connected to some very controversial issues. Because at the end, what is at stake are the interests of different groups, and any policy that you implement is going to have effects on these different groups, which will be, in some cases, beneficial, but in others, not so much. So what I'm trying to emphasize in this statement is that we must not take a naive approach to the idea that science can provide answers to societal challenges. It can provide the best available empirical scientific evidence to understand those processes. But after that, we enter into a much more fuzzy domain, which is basically the political and social effects of that, and the political and social interpretations of these policies that we may want to design. So what is it that we need to do then? Should we take a somehow nihilistic approach and say that science cannot do anything because, after all, it's all a matter of politics? Obviously not. Can we just say that we have the answer because we are scientists and we know how to respond to those challenges? Obviously no either. So what is the actual best approach to this? What is the best way we scientists, I include myself among them, can actually do to contribute to answering these big, complicated challenges? Well, as I said, our role is basically to provide the best available empirical evidence, the best that science can tell us about how the processes, the mechanisms, the dynamics that are behind these challenges operate, and then offer possible solutions, possible recommendations to policymakers, assuming, in a humble way, that after all, this will have to bargain, will be the result of bargainings and complicated negotiations, and the end result will probably not be what we as scientists may have actually preferred or desired. What are we doing within CSIC to try to do something in this direction? Well, with this kind of pragmatic approach, we have been establishing a series of initiatives. I just want to tell you a little bit about them, and then you can find out much more about these issues in our website. We have initiated 4 different types of initiatives. The first one is what we call the Thematic Interdisciplinary Platform Working on Soils. And in here, what we are doing is bringing together scientists from the different disciplines, not only people working on agriculture, on land, on forestries, but also people coming from the social sciences to try to tell us together which are the possible answers, the possible solutions that science can propose to society and to public administrations to address those challenges. The second initiative that we have established in this regard is not only regarding these particular challenges of soils, but any kind of social challenge we confront in our societies today, is what we call our Science for Policy initiative. And here, again, what we're doing is bringing together groups of our scientists from the different disciplines to draft very synthetic documents telling us what do we know about issues like desertification or droughts, or what constitutes a balanced nutrition system, or other things like the energy crisis and many others. And we ask them to draft these documents, which of course are available for free in Spanish and in English in our website. And there they synthesize what is the state of the art of knowledge from science regarding those complex problems, and conclude with some policy recommendations and offering themselves to public administrations to try to provide advice to them to respond to those challenges. Continuing in this direction, the third initiative I wanted to mention to you is what we call the Cicero itineraries. And this is a very interesting dynamic that we put together by bringing, during one whole day, together scientists, policymakers, CEOs from companies involved in one particular area of activity, and also journalists specialized on science. And for one day, we put them together to visit our laboratories, to discuss about some key issues that they are researching, to learn from each other. And in the last instance, what we pursue with this goal is for society at large to be more aware of what is that we do within the scientific world to actually address key societal challenges and to promote collaboration between these different dimensions. Finally, and just in a more transfer of knowledge way, we have created the CoCrea labs that basically bring together scientists and companies, firms, corporations, to actually see to what extent the lines of research that we are conducting within CSIC actually match their interests and their concerns, and explore possibilities for collaboration between these two worlds. So as you can see, what we're trying to do all together is to bring the different stakeholders to sit together, to discuss, to learn together, and try to see how we can actually address these big challenges that we all share in a collective manner. And this is actually exactly what we are doing today in this event and in the coming days. So with this, I just hope that this space, that this time that you are going to share can actually be fruitful for you, and that there will be positive results out of your interaction and of your collective work in the following days. So welcome, and thank you very much for being here.
Francisco, thank you so much. Thank you. And a very, very clear and relevant message about that delicate balancing act between the policies and the science and what happens on the ground. Ladies and gentlemen, very pleased now to welcome our second guest this morning, the head of the cabinet of the Commissioner Wojciechowski, the European Commissioner for Agriculture. Please welcome Maciej Gobierski.
Good morning, everyone. I will keep you a bit long, but first of all, I would like to thank Mr. Fuentes for relieving me of the duty to talk about the very complicated political matters of striking deals and working with all those interests that actually will be the ones who will ensure or not the success of our common endeavor. But this is why we have the Mission Soil European Mission Soil and Mission Soil Week, to solve those issues and try to get everybody to work together. Vice President, Secretary-General, Deputy Director-General of Agriculture, distinguished speakers and guests, dear participants on-site and online, I'm very happy to be here at the first edition of the European Mission Soil Week. Big deal. An annual event design is a key reference for all actors working on healthy soils in the EU. I would also like to warmly thank the Spanish Presidency and the Spanish National Research Council for hosting us and hosting this first Mission Week. And it's a beautiful venue to be hosted in, so thank you for doing it here in the headquarters of CSIC. It shows a very strong Spanish commitment to what we are doing here, which means also rallying behind the EU Green Deal objectives, which also include soils and making them healthy. This is very high on the political agenda of the Commission and my Commissioner. And under the Spanish Presidency, there's been a lot of efforts to get the very basis of agricultural production protected by an EU law, like other natural resources such as water or air. I'm not going to go, because I will try to shorten this a little bit. I will not go into the science, because most of you know the science and know the problems that the soils are facing. So I'm not going to talk a lot about why we care about the soils. We heard that they are globally threatened. And one thing I just wanted to mention here, that because of those issues that we have, we are facing serious costs associated with soil degradation, which I've been told exceed around 50 billion euros per year. So this is a serious drain on our common resources. So the urgency, obviously, to protect the soil health is becoming ever more pressing, and we need to act. Now, in 2020, And the EU role, what is the EU role here? I mean, when member states want to get to the bottom of things and want to work with all those interests that sometimes may complicate the deliveries, they ask the European Commission to take a stance and and work on it. Certain things can be done sometimes better on the EU level than maybe on the national level. That's why we do have, and we have established in 2020, the EU Soil Observatory under our joint research center. And it involved many Commission services. And in 21, it adopted the soil strategy for 2030, and it started the so-called Mission Soil. There is also a proposal for a directive on soil monitoring and resilience that was adopted in July 2023, and the Union will be equipped with this robust framework to tackle the protection and restoration of soil health in the EU by 2050. There are a lot of links, explicit and more implicit, between the upcoming law and the mission that I will talk about in a second, but they are the illustration of how policy and instruments, meaning our funds, can work together to tackle the unprecedented challenges ahead. So what is a Mission Soil, a soil deal for Europe? So 3 years ago, Commission launched this new ambitious instrument called the Missions, under the EU Framework Programme for Research and Innovation, Horizon Europe, that I'm sure all of you are very familiar with. We'd like to be inspired by the history of the Apollos program's mission, and they are kind of the same way. They are a set of interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary actions to achieve an inspirational and measurable goal within a set time frame with and for society. It's rooted in research and innovation, but going much beyond that to create a long-lasting impact. So we have 5 missions: the climate adaptation, cancer, ocean and waters, cities, and our mission here, Soil Deal for Europe. So I'm particularly proud that with this we managed to place soil health, previously only addressed in a very limited and narrow circles, on the kind of the top agenda of the EU. Now, I'll skip a little bit the background again to keep to the time, but basically the core element of the mission, the core elements are the soil health living labs that were mentioned a little bit before here. This is a proven methodology to bring together all relevant actors at local level to take actions on the ground and empower a rapid transition to healthy soils. The mission's very aim is to establish 100 living labs and lighthouses with more than 1,000 testing sites across all of Europe by 2030. Ambitious endeavor. So soil health living labs are, let's say, a real-life experimentation sites where all the actors work together to co-create new solutions for soil challenges on the ground. Farmers, foresters, urban communities, researchers, practitioners, citizens, policymakers, etc. Innovative soil management practices and innovations, including remediation techniques for soil contamination adapted to local conditions, are tested with the land manager's needs at the very center. When solutions prove effective, living labs will become lighthouses to showcase good practices, and the ultimate goal is obviously to scale up the uptake of those solutions to reverse degradation and restore our soils. Quickly, what we've achieved so far, because some of you might be asking this question. There was a wide assessment in 2023, positive. The first living labs will start next year. After some capacity building and awareness raising, I'm happy to see that many proposals submitted to the first call for living labs. They have been those. This is a great success. Overall, through the mission alone, we already invested more than 300 million euros to fill the knowledge gaps. Almost 400 participants are involved in the projects. Among these, 26% are private for-profit entities, such as SMEs, farmers and industries, which is exceptionally high. This is great news for our ambitious goal to achieve real impact on the ground again. The mission is also a key tool for the implementation of the soil monitoring law I mentioned before and the EU soil strategy. We have the thing called EU Soil Observatory dashboard developed by the Joint Research Center. It's been around for a few months. The current version, accessible to wider public, provides information on 17 soil indicators across Europe. But missions are not only about science, technology and innovation, they're also about people. We want to involve citizens. In this context, to increase soil literacy, which is one of our objectives of the mission, We have more than 1,700 citizens and organizations who have signed the Mission Soil Manifesto since its launch, and we hope this week will also boost the amount of signatories. If you haven't signed it, I encourage you to do so. The mission is also mobilizing significant financial resources from other EU programs, such as LIFE, the European Innovation Council, the Circular Bio-Based Europe Joint Undertaking, and also at national level. So we cooperate also with private sector, as I said, philanthropic organizations, etc., to again generate significant investments. Now, the politics of it. It doesn't exist, our Mission Soil, in a void. We have the Common Agricultural Policy, which is obviously the most important instrument for our farmers. There's a lot of synergies between the CAP. I don't know how many of you, those who are farmers, know what the CAP does, but research and innovation are a crucial part of the Common Agricultural Policy. And at the center of the CAP's objectives, we put, which is research and innovation, we put around 40 billion euro that will be available to improve soil quality. We want to assist those who will be on the ground delivering this program. So there is this unique link to the CAP, also through the so-called CAP strategic plans, which are the national plans that every country of the EU had to develop. Now, we have 1,000 operational groups. It's an important point. With farmers, scientists, and industry under the new CAP's AGRI European Innovation Partnership. They are expected to work on soil management, replicating and scaling up solutions developed in living labs. This is more than double compared to the last CAP period. Now, this week, we have the week of the soil, of European Mission Soil. We would like to show you the Mission Soil portfolio of all those funded projects and their results. We'd like to present and discuss relevant initiatives for improving soil health in Europe and to network with peers and other stakeholders and learn, partner, and collaborate to for healthier soils. So during this mission week, in the next 3 days, you'll have the chance to exchange with more than 100 speakers and leaders. All of you are here, some are online. There is a lot of my colleagues from DG AGRI, there's probably 6 or 7 of them. You'll have a chance to have them with you, and they are the ones who are the most knowledgeable about what is being done on the kind of a DG level. There is a key EU project such as PREPSOIL, for example. You will learn how it supports the mission. We have our mission ambassadors, local and regional signatories of those missions manifestos that are here, I think. And at the end, there will be a mission today, I think, Mission Soil Photo Competition Award, which unfortunately I will not be able to attend, but my colleague, Director Diego Cancafano, as a fellow Spaniard, will do that for you. Anyway, your contributions obviously are very essential to ensure that the mission effectively meets the evolving needs of our farmers, foresters, businesses, and citizens, so it can provide much needed knowledge, innovation, and skills for sustainable soil management. I would like to end by concluding and thanking, I would like to conclude by thanking all the speakers and participants, also online. Thank you again to INIA-CSIC for hosting this first edition under the Spanish Presidency of the EU Council. It will become an annual event, and I hope it will become a day marked on your calendars for years to come to demonstrate that our joint commitment on the EU soils will truly make a difference. So I wish you all a fruitful event. Again, apologies for a long speech, but I think there's a lot to be said so that we prepare the ground for the effective next 3 days. And again, thank you for hosting us.
Maciek, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. And if there is one figure that you take away from this week, 50 billion euro drain on finances. Thank you very much for your words this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, let us now move on and welcome the Deputy Director-General of Agriculture, Means of Production and Spanish Office of Plant Varieties. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome José Antonio Sobrino. Thank you.
Sasha, thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. Dear Secretary-General, dear Head of Cabinet, dear Javier, thank you very much for having the Ministry of Agriculture in this inauguration. I would first like to transmit the warmest greetings from my Director-General, Esperanza Orellana, who unfortunately for last-minute problems hasn't been able to be here with you today. Many thanks to the organizers, particularly to the European Commission and INIA-CSIC for hosting this European Mission Soil Week. Agricultural soils are essential for ensuring food security. The United Nations estimates that there will be nearly 10 billion people living on our planet in 2050. In Europe, it is estimated that, and we've seen that in the video, that more than 60% of the soils are in an unhealthy situation. Agricultural soil management practices directly affect soil structure, organic matter content, fertility, and biodiversity. The organic carbon storage capacity of soils is a very important tool against climate change, which is reflected in the 4 per 1,000 initiative in which Spain is heavily involved since its creation. But it is also necessary to highlight the relationship between adaptive capacity of agroecosystems to climate change, agricultural soil health, and soil organic carbon. Soil organic carbon is closely linked to soil health and soil's capacity to contribute combating climate change beyond carbon sequestration. Soil processes are highly dependent on the activity of soil microorganisms that use soil organic matter in their physiological activity. Healthy soils are less vulnerable to drought and erosion and help to ensure food security. During periods of intense drought, such as the one we are experiencing here in Spain since 2022, healthy soils with high level content of organic carbon have an increased capacity to retain moisture and nutrients. That is, they are more resilient soils. The current geopolitical and socio-political circumstances highlight the need for efficient food production systems for which is essential to have healthy soils and the tools that maintain them, in a good condition. So we also need to characterize soils and develop the methodologies to do so. To a certain extent, soil is both a key player, but also the great unknown in the agri-food system. Fortunately, the scientific community, European and national institutions, public and private initiatives of many different kinds are helping to make the soil's role in the future of our food and our planet increasingly visible. This Soil Week is proof of it. I would therefore like to thank the European Commission's Directorate-General for Agriculture, the Joint Research Centre, EU Soil Observatory, the PREPSOIL project, and of course, the hosting institution, INIA-CSIC, for organizing this extremely important event. And I would like to highlight Spain's commitment and that of the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Fisheries, not only to this European Soil Week, but also to a series of initiatives aimed at improving soil health. At national level, only in 2022, the Royal Decree on Sustainable Nutrition in Agricultural Soils was published for the first time, laying down conditions and practices on fertilization, highlighting a global approach taking into account the soil, plant water system, and enhancing its management as living soils. Work is already underway to create an official network of laboratories to advance in the development and adoption of standards to improve soil analysis that will allow us to assess its health, its needs, and how the steps we take work on soils. In the framework of the Common Agricultural Policy, which has been already mentioned, eco-schemes have been designed in favor of carbon farming, which provide economic incentives for the adoption of agricultural and livestock farming practices, such as direct seeding, crop rotation, and crop improving species, spontaneous or sown vegetation covers, inert covers, extensive grazing, establishment of biodiversity islands, and sustainable mowing. We are working hard with several partners, like the Spanish Association for Conservation Agriculture, to promote carbon farming, in particular with the aim at increasing farmers' expertise and capacity to facilitate the implementation of these practices. We are supporting both with national and European funding, next generation funds, farmers' investments in machinery to achieve a more environmentally friendly agriculture, in particular for carbon farming. The Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food, and only today we've learned that we are preserving this name in our ministry, which I think is very important, is also collaborating with INIA-CSIC in an ambitious project aimed at monitoring the impact of common agricultural policy measures on the carbon stock of soils across Spain. Within this project, the carbon content of 16,000 agricultural plots will be analyzed until 2029. Within the national strategy to combat desertification, the implementation of a national soil inventory is planned, and a pilot project for this purpose has been launched this year, pushed by the Ministry for Agricultural Transition and with the support of other relevant organisms. At European level, within the framework of our presidency, we are supporting the EU in its initiatives that have started to develop the protection of soil under the Soil Health Strategy. First, the European Commission's proposal for the Soil Health Monitoring Act, which was published on July 5th this year. The proposal for a regulation establishing a union certification framework for carbon removals. As well, the program that brings us here this week is part of the European Commission's initiative, the EJP Soil Program, in the framework of which this first edition of the European Mission Soil, entitled Leading the Transition to Healthy Soils. At international level, Spain is one of the main partners, together with France and Germany, in the 4 per 1,000 initiative, which aims to promote organic carbon sequestration in agricultural soils to combat climate change and improve food security. One of its main pillars is a Scientific and Technical Committee, STC, with international expertise and extensive experience in soil carbon science and management. We are also members of the FAO Global Soil Partnership and have recently participated in a workshop held at the OECD on the development of farm-level calculation tools for carbon footprinting. With this institutional support, we believe that we are contributing to improve the knowledge of this delicate supraorganism, soil, to the development of tools that allow its conservation, and this way to guarantee our capacity to produce healthy and quality food in the long term. Soil health is fundamental to ensuring food security, which requires us to be able to characterize soils, in particular agricultural soils. To this end, it is essential to support research to contribute to the establishment of networks that enable the exchange of information and collaboration between scientific communities. At the same time, it is also essential to establish channels of communication between these communities and society in general, including farmers, advisors, machinery manufacturers, fertilizer manufacturers, administrations, etc. But also, and this will be my final words, and very importantly, to explain to society the role of soil in their own food supply and that of future generations, raising awareness of the importance of soil conservation. In all this, the European Mission Soil Week is an initiative that can serve as an example. Thank you very much.
Jose, thank you so much. Absolutely underlining the Spanish commitment there. Thank you for joining us. And ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure now to introduce the Secretary-General for Research at the Ministry of Science and Innovation of Spain. Ladies and gentlemen, Raquel Lloti.
Good morning, everyone. Dear Mr. Golubiaski, Head of Cabinet of the Commissioner for Agriculture, Mr. Sobrino, Deputy General Director for Agricultural Means of Production and Spanish Office of Plant Varieties, and Mr. Moreno Fuentes, Vice President for International Affairs at the Spanish National Research Council, and Mr. Gonzalo Arévalo, Director General for Research Planification at the Ministry of Science and Innovation, authorities, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I want to thank the organizers of this conference, the INIA, the Spanish Research Council, and especially the Commission for inviting the Ministry of Science and Innovation to participate in this conference, in this very important conference during the European Mission Soil Weeks. It's an honor, it's a pleasure for me to address you at this opening session of the conference that is within the framework of the Spanish Presidency of the Council of the European Union. And I think that this is a very good opportunity to very briefly summarize some of the priorities of our presidency. The global priorities, we have 4 global priorities. The first one is reindustrializing the EU and guaranteeing its open strategic autonomy. The second one is advancing in the green transition, including sustainable practice and environmental responsibility, and this is a very important one for this particular conference. The third one is promoting greater social and economic justice, and the fourth one is strengthening European unity, fostering a more integrated and robust union. And aligned with these 4 priorities in the realm of science and innovation, we have addressed 3 key areas. The use of science for the public policy process, enhancing knowledge to improve citizens' lives and strengthen democracy, improving cooperation and territorial cohesion through R&I, focusing on the role of the regional and local innovation ecosystems, and the policy impact of the Recovery and Resilience Facility on the European research area as a qualitative leap in European R&I policies to improve competitiveness and welfare. And in addition, we expect that during our presidency, it is adopted the European Commission recommendation on one of the great challenges that our societies are facing, such as the European framework to attract and retain research and innovation and entrepreneurial talent in Europe. And as you can see, all these priorities are not theme-oriented, but are very pertinent and I think that interconnected with the subjects that we are going to discuss during these days. First, acknowledging the pivotal role of science and innovation in supporting policymakers, we emphasize the necessity of effective interfaces between the two. And in this matter, we have already established mechanisms with our Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries to support decision-maker policies. And as the Vice President of the CSIC has explained, also in the Ministry of Science and Innovation and with the leadership of the CSIC, we have also implemented the dedicated tools for using science for the policy-making process in very different sectors. Simultaneously, we recognize the transformative potential of research and innovation investments in different sectors, such as, of course, agriculture, and furthermore, we delve deeper into how R&I investments can foster cohesion in both regional and national territories. Moreover, we have placed a strong emphasis on international collaboration with our natural neighbors, and during this semester, we are promoting modifications to extend until 2027 the Partnership for Research and Innovation in the Mediterranean region, what we call PRIMA. I think that some of you know about it. PRIMA is focused on water management, farming systems, and the agri-food value chain. And of course, going through the soil missions, I don't want to repeat many things that have been already mentioned, so I will go, but I think that it's important to transmit some of the ideas. From the perspective of science and innovation, it's very clear that soil plays a pivotal role in providing essential services for both the humanity and the environment. And it is indispensable for sustaining our daily food needs, purifying water sources, mitigating flooding risk, and combating droughts. Moreover, soil stands as a crucial element in the fight against climate change, acting as a reservoir that captures and stores significant amounts of carbon. And the foundation of food security also lies on the health of our soils. And in all these areas, research and innovation offers the opportunity to enhance our understanding and care of these vital resources. This forms the core of the soil mission, necessitating a comprehensive approach that integrates cross-sectoral policies encompassing research and innovation. And the goal is, we have already heard, establish 100 living labs and lighthouses by 2030, spreading the transitions toward healthier soils. The soil missions also plays a key role in the new directive on soil monitoring and resilience proposed last July. And I think that the science community, the scientific community, could and should be more involved in the proposal. Indeed, research and innovation have fundamental role for sustainable soil management, food production, and ecosystem stability. And still, there are many unknown issues where R&I can provide further answers and solutions. Additionally, the soil can promote joint work between farmers, foresters, researchers, administrations to characterize altogether and monitor and improve agricultural soils following an holistic approach aimed at allowing sustainable farming. There's a need to continue creating strong communication channels among researchers, policymakers, and citizens. We require farmer and citizen engagement to better understand the needs of the different stakeholders. And Spain has been a country very involved in the 5 missions developed under the Horizon Europe program since its very early stage in November 2019. Simultaneously with the creation of the 5 mission boards, we identified a national focal point per mission and launched 1 mirror group per mission. In the context of the soil mission, the mirror group comprised ministries responsible for science, agriculture, and environment, and additionally, various stakeholders to held vested interest in this mission were included. And among them, the research and innovation funding agencies played a very relevant role. This collaborative body functions to drive the implementation of the mission, ensuring cohesive alignment of research and innovation with policy requirements. And the primary responsibility of this mirror group lies in mobilizing the relevant communities and crafting detailed implementation strategies specific to Spain. Their concerted efforts aim to foster collaboration among diverse stakeholders and devise comprehensive plans to advance the objectives of the soil mission within the country. Some of the progress made in Spain for which the soil mission was a catalyst are the publication and approval of the Spanish Common Agricultural Policy Strategic Plan 2023-2027, focused on an eco-scheme providing support to producers in areas at risk of desertification, the creation of a soil map that records properties at an appropriate scale useful for the protection of agricultural soil with coverage and precision greater than existing cartography, improved efforts efforts on soil literacy, communication, and citizen engagement through the organization of public national conference to present the mission to relevant stakeholders. And finally, the development of living labs and lighthouses based on the co-creation principle as instruments to the transition to healthy soils in real context and global conditions, with enormous contribution to national and regional institutions all over Spain. These are just testimonies of how the Soil Mission is serving to leverage the efforts made in this field in Spain, and how science and innovation combined with sectorial policies have the potential to transform and confront global challenges. And I would like to conclude by thanking again the organizers of this conference for your dedication, commitment, and enthusiasm for the soil missions. And I extend my best wishes to all attendees of this conference, hoping it serves as an additional stimulating measure to discuss the very important matter, and that the discussion around the different sessions contribute to advancing solutions to our citizens and the welfare of our societies. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to our distinguished guests for coming and opening our conference so beautifully for us. Ladies and gentlemen, let us actually have a look at what we have lined up for you. So if we can have a look at the agenda now, because it is a very, very busy programme. If you are joining us and watching us online, you can take a note of the times. We'll try and keep as much as we can to the times as we go through. But you'll see that we're going to set the scene in just a moment and then start to go into policies. We have breakouts for you. And then we bring you all together to look at other different bits of research on an international level as well. So, and that's just day one, by the way. It is a very, very busy day. You may be quite pleased to see cocktails and networking at the end as well. There's a very loud laugh from somewhere over there. Fantastic. Right, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do now is have a look at the overview of the health of EU soils. You know the headline figure of over 60% of soils being unhealthy. So what we're going to do now is dive into that and put a lot more research and understanding on it. We have the perfect person to do this for us today. Someone with over 35 years of experience in environmental research. She is now the head of soils and land use at the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology, internationally respected. Please welcome Professor Bridget Emmett.
Wow, what a privilege it is to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. It is quite emotional to be here as a Brit as well, I will have to say. And yeah, there probably will be another one of those. And I just want to say how fantastic it is to see what the mission has already achieved. I look forward to hearing about all the projects already funded, and I particularly want to do a call out for the Mission Secretariat. They quietly just get on and have steered us all through this, and look what has been achieved. So please do, if you see them at any point, go and thank them, and we wouldn't be here without them. How they had the patience to work with the original mission board, I have no idea, but well done you guys. So, I've been asked to speak about the status of soils in Europe. Perhaps the first thing we need to say is, what do we want? Well, this actually took months of the original mission board to say, what is a healthy soil? What is it we want soils to do? And we decided it's the continued capacity of soils to deliver ecosystem services. And you all know the list. You've heard them from our fabulous first speakers. And actually, it's becoming even more problematic now. We want more space for soils to support nature. We want more food security. We want soils to perhaps support bioenergy, and we want it to also support perhaps renewable energy on land. So land and soil is becoming more and more contested. So we really need to make sure our soil is healthy and supports these services, because there's ongoing competition for how we then use that land. But what's the reality? Now, you know the statistic, but I'm going to break it down a little bit more for you. We want healthy people, but we have 2.8 million contaminated sites, of which only 24% are inventoried, i.e. we really know them, and very few have been remediated. We want safe food, but when we look into the soil, bring it back to the lab, that really is the only way to do it. We know that 83% of our soils have residual pesticides, 21% of agricultural soils where we grow our food have cadmium concentrations above the limit for drinking water. 6% have heavy metal content, potentially unsafe for food production. Climate regulation. We hear a lot about this. It is really important, but our cropland soils are losing carbon. So our soils should be helping us with climate change, and they're currently actually contributing to the problem. That is just really unacceptable, and we have to turn that around. And the story for our peatlands is just even more devastating. We reckon 50% of our peatlands are drained and are losing carbon. They're a real hotspot of carbon storage, centuries, millennia of carbon storage. We've drained them, and it's just all going up into the atmosphere. Continued biological production. We absolutely need to fix CO2 out the atmosphere to grow our trees, to grow our plants, but we've got unsustainable water erosion in 24% of our land, and in parts of southern, central and eastern Europe, we've got 25% of land at high or very high risk of desertification. Supporting biodiversity. You all know the statistic, 25% of global biodiversity actually lives in the soil, okay? It's hidden, it's down there, and it's really, really important. For example, most commonly used antibiotics have actually been derived from soil. It saves lives. But 65 to 75% of agricultural soils currently have nutrients beyond what the crop needs. We are throwing nutrients in that the crops actually don't need. And that means that basically eutrophies the soil and the water. And that affects biodiversity. Add on top of that the pesticides and the compaction. And this is the statistic that most upsets me. It takes 100 years to build half a centimetre of soil, on average. We throw it away. The biggest thing that goes into our landfill sites is soil, and most of it is uncontaminated. It is just cheaper and easier for construction companies and engineering companies to dig soil out, take it to a landfill, and put it in there. We absolutely have to reuse and recycle and turn that statistic around, because it is just throwing hundreds and thousands of years of nature's work away every time we do it. So we put all that together. You've all seen the statistic. You see it endlessly. It's very often not very commonly cited where it comes from. So I just want to point, the caring for soil is caring for life. Our fabulous chair, Kees Veerman, was the first author. And if you go and find that document and look at Annex 1, you will find the very brave assumptions and all the publications we use to get to this number. Okay? It wasn't perfect, but it was the best we could do at the time. Oh. Something's just gone wrong. That isn't me. I'll try the next slide. And oh, there we go. It's come back. And one of the key issues, we've heard a lot about agriculture. And of course, it is really important. Forestry is not off the hook. Just because you plant a tree in soil, they have compaction, they do erosion, they do use chemicals. We have to look at also our forest systems, urban contamination. That's where most of our people live. And nature land, acid rain, air pollution, metals, they all go and get dumped on our nature land. So there are problems also there as well. So it covers all our land use types. Very important to focus on agricultural land, but it's all our soils we need to look after. So we went through all the different policies and strategies. EU loves policies and strategies. We have a lot of them. And we dug out all the things that we're already committed to. Here they are. This was already embedded in many, many of the policies. We've just got to make sure we deliver them. And then the mission added on, and we will not export our problems to other parts of the world. We have to take responsibility for this. Let's not do a second wave of colonialism by stealth. And also improve soil literacy. We want everyone to shout and love our soil so that it never falls off the political agenda again. So what have we learnt? So most of you, I hope, knew all those statistics. You've all read the documents. What have we learnt since? And I want to stop there just very briefly, because we have got the Soil Health Law for monitoring and resilience, which is really, I absolutely think it's fantastic. It says we need data. We cannot manage what we don't measure. So absolutely soil monitoring is at the heart of it. But we as soil scientists do not help ourselves. We love to say how complicated and complex and fascinating soils are. That isn't helping us. So a lot of member states do not have soil monitoring programs. LUCAS, of course, goes across everyone, but the EU wants member states to take responsibility themselves. And yet we say, soils are very variable. It's very expensive. It's really difficult. And anyway, why don't we just measure the functions, not the soil itself? Just let me, for a few minutes, step through each of those. Soils are too variable, really, more than biodiversity itself. So for the Habitats Directive, we measure biodiversity. Biodiversity is a function of the soil diversity. They are no more diverse than biodiversity itself. Too expensive. We run integrated monitoring programs where in the same location, we measure soil, water, plants, birds, pollinators, landscape quality, cultural features. I have the budget sheet. Soil is not my biggest number. It really isn't. The biggest number is actually to find botanists who can go and count and record those amazing plant diversity species. So it isn't expensive. It's just never been in our budget line. So it's, of course, new money, which always seems harder to find. Too difficult. This is really weird. So soil is underneath our feet. It stays where it is. It's kind of there, other than erosion. The Farmland Bird Index is one of the most commonly accepted indicators for the CAP scheme. Birds move from one field to another. So I'm doing great things in this field, so the birds from there come over here. Have I got more birds overall or not? They also migrate to Africa and the Arctic. And yet we say, so have you ever seen the bird index? It goes up and down like a yo-yo. Okay, so really hard to do it. And yet we totally accept it's a good indicator. What about pollinators? They only come out when the sun shines. So I have to have teams of people ready to go when the sun shines to go out and count the pollinators. Don't have that problem for soil. What about water? The Water Framework Directive actually has to specify how many times you go out at low flow, at high flow, low tide, high tide, where in the lake you sample your water. It's quite hard because there's flows in water. It's really variable. And the amount of money we spend on water monitoring, enormous. It's had an effect. We have improved our waters. And finally, air. If you've ever put a rain collector on top of a remote mountaintop like I've done, if the air is coming from the east, when you take the rain sample back, the filter covered in black, oil, horrible, full of pollution, because that's the direction of the industry. If it's a westerly wind, completely clean. Soil doesn't change depending which way the wind blows. Okay? Soils don't migrate to Africa. And they don't have tides. I mean, really, soils are quite, I'm not saying it's simple, but let's not overwhelm people and put people off doing this. They just haven't done it. Some of us have done it. Lucas is doing it. Let's not put people off. So now I've had that rant, I feel much better. So, oh, and now the button's even given up on me. Right, the button is not working. Can anyone help me? Oh, there we go. So now, what have we got now? Fabulous JRC. We've already heard of the EU Soil Observatory. Let's pull all the data together. And what we didn't do in that original document is spatially map it. Because that's what every country wants to know. Not just 60, 70%. Was that my country and for which bits? They're mapping it. And then they've got this indicator which is saying, thank goodness, 61%. Thank goodness, because that meant we weren't far out 3 years ago, but it's really bad news. 60%. Look how far, by 2050, that indicator, that needle has to be down at 0%. We don't have much time to do this. We need to get on and do it. So we have this. We have a way to pull the data together, which is just great. And we have regional variation. Again, that's not a problem. That is true for the Habitats Directive, the Water Framework Directive. We've always got regional variation. So just to give you some examples, peatlands, which I've already talked about, more of them up in the north. Big issue for Ireland and the Scandinavian countries. If we don't drain our peats and grow our food on them, where are we going to grow that food? Oh, we'll just import it. No, we're not going to export our food footprint. So we've got real challenges there. Water erosion, more in the south because not so much vegetation cover, climate, soils. Compaction. This is a soil type indicator, more over in the east. And then soil sealing. We all do that. We all have towns and cities. It's everywhere. We're all sealing and taking it more and more land for our towns and our cities. We need to reuse and not do net land take. So, some actual real fabulous data. So the EUSO this year published the latest soil organic carbon story from the LUCAS program. It's not a pretty story. We are still losing carbon. Soil, as you know, is a really big soil carbon store, so a tiny change is really, really nightmare. That's a big amount of carbon that's going back up to the atmosphere, when soils should be storing carbon, not releasing it. But I just want to make a point that double that number to get organic matter. And organic matter is actually, in my mind, as important. Organic matter is 50% of its carbon. It's what gives the structure to soil. It's what lets air move in for the microbes to breathe. It's what lets the roots penetrate and the water percolate through. So I personally think, great to do carbon, let's always have the other plot, which is the soil organic matter, because that makes the point. Otherwise, soils just become, it's for climate. That's all we need our soils for. It's climate, climate, climate. Now, soil organic matter is for soil health. That's what provides the structure and the habitat that the microbes and all the other things can live in. So this is great, and I want to give you a bit of a good news story, and forgive me just promoting something that we have now. So for the UK, as with LUCAS, we've been measuring for 40 years our soils. Just the topsoil, wish we had money to do the deeper soils. And you can see here that our crops and weeds in the UK has been going down, just as LUCAS has been reporting. That's actually really helpful when you have multiple schemes and they all say the same thing. You kind of go, okay, we're all measuring the right way around. Fertile grassland is going up. Great. No problem in grassland? Yes, there is. 25% of them have compaction, which is why we need multiple indicators. But I just want you to give you the next exciting data point. So we're just finishing the next cycle, so the fourth data point. So watch the crops and weeds line. It's going up. We're turning a corner. What you've heard, probably bending the biodiversity curve, we're bending the soil carbon curve, which is just amazing. The line is a little different because we've only managed to sample 60% of the soil so far. It's submitted, so I'm absolutely breaching scientific process. But it's so exciting, and I want to give you some good news. So if you just emphasize that, look at the tip. And we think it's because we have loads more work to do. Farmers are doing it for themselves. They're already doing reduced tillage. They're already using less fertilizers. But we need to dig into this more. But perhaps I don't just want to come here and give you gloom and doom. We can change this. We can do things. And there's one more thing that we've actually had a success story, which seems really old hat now, and we've forgotten about it. Do you remember acid rain? If you're old enough, some of us started out in that world. We absolutely sorted it. 80% reductions in emissions. And pH in every single habitat over 40 years went up, back to what it should be. When you remember, pH is a log scale. That change in hydrogen ion, particularly down in those acid soils, is huge. For the bugs and the plants that live in the soil, that has been an extraordinary change in the chemistry that they experience every day. So this is a massive policy achievement, and it wasn't done by farmers or foresters. It was actually done by the air quality team over there, and it benefited our soils and our waters. But I do want to just emphasize one issue here. We did do a lot of things. We put filters in power stations. We converted from coal. But we also exported a lot of our heavy industry to Asia. Must have happened in some of your countries as well. They have a massive acidification problem now. So actually, we achieved this in part by just pushing the problem halfway across the world. So let's be careful about that when we think about our food. Okay, it's a little temperamental. There we go. And other things to help us, Copernicus, Sentinel. Just what a joy. We now have data which can actually see from the sky in the satellite. We can see what we are doing to our land. We don't have to ask farmers for it now. So on the right-hand side, the top left is EO data from June. And on the right is in November. So you can actually see which fields explicitly have been tilled, which have bare soil, which both tell us the driver of change, and they also tell us about bare soil, which we really want to minimize. If you go to the bottom left, we actually know in every individual field what crop has been planted. Is it potato? Is it spinach? Is it onions? What is it? That means we can directly link future changes in soils to which crop was it, how was it managed, how was it tilled. So we have huge potential going forward for EO to help us. But technology of a zapper is apparent. Oh, here we go. Right. I think the battery might be wearing out a bit of this. So one of the other things, and my colleague in the audience, David Robinson, led on this, was we can also use EO for looking at soil erosion features in our landscape. So the team went and they used 10-meter spatial resolution from Sentinel, 3-meter resolution from commercial EO data, and 0.25, which is good old-fashioned aerial photography, which has been around for, well, since, the early part of the 20th century. Look at the difference in the y-axis and scales. On the top 15 erosion features, when you went down a scale, we get to 20. When you come down to aerial photograph, you can pick up 50 erosion features. So technology is great, but we need some consistency. You can't always follow and say, we're going to do better and better, because then you can't track change over time. So over time, basically, the harder you look, the smaller resolution you do, the more erosion features you do. Well, obviously, for tracking change, that's not going to help us. So we have to standardize. That's my message. Technology is great, but technology keeps moving. At some point, we've got to put a line in the sand and go, you know what, for the next 10 years, even if there's improvements, we're going to use this technology, because otherwise we're just measuring change in technology, not change in soil health. Of course, technology for many other things. eDNA, we're nearly there. It's been a long road, but we're nearly there. I'm sure some of you think we are already there, but to get acceptance by everyone is still, we just need to get there. But actually trying to track how our microbial populations are changing and what that means in terms of function, metagenomes is probably where we're going to go. You all, many of you, I'm sure, every week get an email from a commercial sensor company going, got it sorted. Our sensor is going to do everything for you. It's just fabulous. Buy it from us now. But we're not actually going to quite tell you how it works. Do you get those emails? We get those emails all the time. Sensors are going to work. We need to test them. We need to work with the SMEs. They are going to be a huge part of where we go going forward. We will still need our laboratories. We've got new methods for doing, for example, microplastics. Robotics, absolutely essential in the field for potentially reducing compaction. Phytoremediation as just one example of how we might get rid of contamination. AI, we've got our fabulous AI for Soil Health project, which has been funded by the mission, which uses that new data science approaches for bringing together our data. And I just want to do a shout out for the next generation of our process models. We really need our process models to try and bring together things. There's a next generation which encapsulates the new scientific understanding that our old models do not have. They're not quite there yet, but they're getting there. When I say they're not quite there yet, they can't do every land use type, every crop type, every management type. It takes 10 to 20 years to actually develop these models, and we need to support them in doing that. So I really do a call out for those models. And I just want to say, we cannot wait for a perfect evidence base. So here is one of the pain that I've had for the last year. I will mention again, Brexit, oh joy. We have to now rebuild CAP for our farmers in Britain, okay? So what do we know? They wanted to say, what do we actually pay? What is the evidence of what works and what doesn't work? Not just for soil, but for all the ecosystem services, for biodiversity, for air quality, for cultural services. So we pulled together a team and we reviewed 741 actions that they were considering to give money for. And they asked us to score them for 33 ecosystem services, 53 ecosystem service indicators. That's a matrix, by the way, of 40,000. And the team, bless them, they found 2,400 sources of evidence. We've got the classic reviews available there. It's all going to be released in a few weeks. But we also created a coded spreadsheet where 741 rows by 53 columns, all coded by, does it work? Red, it's going to really mess up that. Amber, might work. Green, yes, it does work. How much does it work? Is it just a little bit or is it massive? 1, 2, 3 star. What's the state of the evidence base? Do we really know this, or is it experts going, we think this will really work, it follows a logic chain? And finally, contextual dependencies. Does it matter where you do it, how you do it, and how much you do it to get the outcomes that you want. So what we're hoping that this will now be a rolling program. We don't have to do this rapid review that nearly killed us, and it would be just great to join that with EU evidence, because frankly we need to work together to actually get this evidence base in a rolling program so we can advise our farmers what works where and why. So this is what we need to do. You've already heard about the living labs. I'm not going to go into it. Complete change in how we do our research and innovation. Co-creation in real-life situations with real-life people at scale, working together, so we'll get some of those unintended, if you like, consequences of social networking, peer-to-peer learning, perhaps shorter market chains, a whole lot of things. We need targets and monitor outcomes. You cannot manage what you don't measure. We need everyone to encourage to learn more about soil, and we need to develop new systems. And there's just a picture of a very sad soil in a forestry system. No, I don't have it in for trees. I love trees. I'm just emphasizing that things can go wrong in different land use types. So we have all these. You know them. I'm sure there'll be lots of discussion over the week about the EU soil health law, and those are some of the things. But I just want to make the case in my last minute, you'll be pleased to hear, it's not just about what the EU Commission can do for you or what farmers do. We all have a role to play, and I know you all know this. The EU literacy, we're really trying to increase. So we all need to act, and I just want to share two things that I have found just fabulous in my academic career. I was reached out to by the BBC, I'm sure you've all heard of the BBC, to help write and narrate an animation film of why soil is one of the most amazing things on earth. It has had 171,000 hits. I wish any of my academic papers had that kind of hit. I have a horrible feeling this is probably the most important thing I ever did in 35 years of science. But never mind, there we go. So just new ways of communication, reaching out to people with a global reach that you wouldn't believe. We've also done a UK Soil Awareness Week. The BBC caught on. I managed to get onto BBC Morning News, 100 million viewers. Okay, for 5 minutes, but you know, that's just astonishing reach if we can get and work with the media, excite them about soil. So we've got a hub which we've created because there's a lot of rubbish on the hub which really confuses people. So we've created a curated hub. Here is good quality data. Here are activities you can do with your kids. Here's some fabulous films and books on soils. So we're just trying to do things differently, get away from our publications, still do those a little bit, and find new ways of communicating. And so this is what it's all about. Are we going to hand to our children better soil? Is the soil that they're playing in, that they find fascinating as children, safe, free from contamination? Are they stable, or is that mud going to go in the river and into our seas? And is it going to sustain life, that 25% of soil biodiversity, and the 8 billion people that we have to support? And with that challenge of kids just playing in the mud, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much.
Bridget, come and take a seat. Come and take a seat. Would you like to grab that microphone? I could say 2 words to you, or 1 word actually, maybe it might be, but TikTok. Oh. I was just wondering actually, TikTok, is that maybe the way to like grab and get those views?
Absolutely, and this is where I have to admit I don't do social media. So those of you who do,
yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Absolutely do it. I'm just such a wimp, I don't. But that's absolutely another way to do it. So yeah, good luck.
Who's got a decent following on social media in here in the room, or who their organisation has? Let's just make sure you've got that link to Bridget's BBC explainer film, and we'll get you to retweet it. How's that? Fantastic. Right. Oh, there's a good nodding down here. Fantastic. Right. Brilliant. And if you are on TikTok, yeah, it's getting the young generation. We've got a few minutes for some questions. So if you are watching us online, use Slido. You can use Slido in the room as well, or raise your hand and we can get a microphone to you straight away if you've got a quick question for Bridget. We were just mentioning there about getting young people involved. There's a question straight away about farmers, actually. So how do you reach out to farmers? Because to be quite clear, the data that you were using the way that the amount of data points that you need, a lot of farmers are going to go, you're having a laugh.
Yeah, so I think this is one of the big conversations we'll have this week is soil monitoring at a national scale for reporting is really important, but it doesn't help farmers at an individual level. They need to, well, hopefully undertake their own monitoring so that they can adapt as they go along. Now, I would hope that similar indicators are used, and we are now working with farmers to both say, here's simple methods, so simpler approach than we do, but following the same indicators, and here's benchmarks. So that national data set I showed, we've now created, so for your soil type, for your habitat type, and for your climate zone, here's the distribution of what soils currently are for carbon, pH, organic matter. Are you in the bottom 10%? Is that where you want to be? Or do you want to be in the top 10%? And so we're just providing a way for farmers to do it for themselves so that they get the data at the granularity they need to go, I'm pushing these fields too far, too fast. I need to draw back. I need to do things differently. At the national scale, why we need that is so that we know when it all adds up, nationally, we've improved our soils. We don't have what I call deserts and oases. Great farmers, but all that's happened is all the food production has just moved and the heavy intensive has moved to other places. We need to know how it adds up nationally, but we must support farmers getting in touch with their soil again and doing the measurements themselves so they can adapt and learn as they go.
It's not just getting the data, it's understanding it.
It's understanding it, and what perhaps we're not doing very well, which the mission has also identified, is advisory services so that farmers go, okay, I'm in the bottom 10%, what do I do now? What would work for my soils? Can I have some help? And I think all across Europe we identified that those advisory services had got lost, and so farmers or foresters or urban people want to do the right thing. Where do they go to find the information?
Yeah. Let us take any more questions in the room. There's a lady there with her hand up. If you would like to... Yep, fantastic. Thank you. Could you introduce yourself first, please?
Yes, I'm Teresa Pinto Correia from Portugal, and I'm part of the mission board. And I had the pleasure to work with Bridget before. And Bridget, thanks very much for this brilliant presentation of the status of what we have to do with soils. I have a question which relates really this monitoring with helping the farmers. And the question is whether in your measures or what you think about policy instruments or tools which are related to results or result-based payments, because that will require the monitoring, and depending on the result, you get the compensation. And that's at the same time a monitoring exercise and a compensation for the results. So my question is whether you think this will work, whether you have experience about it.
So I think it's a step process. At the moment, I think the same as across EU, we need to do this gradually. So at the moment, we've classically paid for actions, things that we know. We will pay you to do that. And at least in England, what we're doing is we're paying people to show that they're actually measuring their soil. So we're not giving money only if you can prove something's improved. Just the fact that you're actually measuring your soil will give you money for that. And that's a big step forward, just to build confidence that I know I now can do this. I know how to do it in a repeatable and robust way. I've got benchmarks. I know what actions to do. And then say 5 years down the line, we perhaps can start going to outcome-based payments. But we have to take people with us. You know, we already lost a soils directive once. Let's not do it again. Let's gradually not scare farmers off and just work with them. So I think it's gradual. I really hope we will in the end get to outcome-based payments. That's where I hope we'll get to, but perhaps it's a little early yet. Thanks, Teresa.
It's about engaging first, isn't it? And exactly as you say, you have to take people with you and help them to understand why something's being done instead of just being imposed on them. Ladies and gentlemen, are you happy to take further questions during the coffee break? Fantastic, wonderful, because I know that there are a lot more questions, but I'm also very, very conscious that we have hundreds of people watching us online, and we're trying to keep to time as we go through as well. There is one other person here that I have not introduced yet, or is not here, but part of the week. And that is our graphic recorder. because online joining us, our graphic recorder, Carlotta Cataldi, who is listening to everything that we are talking about, including what you've been saying, Bridget, and is making a graphic representation of it. And that is what we have so far. So far, Carlotta has been listening to everything that we've been talking about and has put it all together. I think you'll be very pleased to see peatlands up there, Bridget. What else have you spotted?
Yes, we can. I quite like we did for acid rain. We should have started decades ago. Well, listen, gosh, can I have a copy of this? It's like watching myself in reverse. Where are we going to grow our food? Yeah, no, thank you. Well, thank you, Carlotta. That's lovely.
So what she's doing is, as we go through the next few days, she will be taking all the ideas and inspiration, and yes, we can then sort of take it in a visual representation. And maybe we could all tweet it or use social media. There we go. I don't think I've ever had a guest roll her eyes at me on stage before.
Sorry.
Not at all. So, ladies and gentlemen, please, would you thank our first speaker today, taking us through the detail of this, Bridget Emmett. Thank you. And we'll leave that on the board for you. Oh, look, in fact, look at that. Carlotta is even writing hashtags live as we speak. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a short break for you. When you go and take yourselves some coffee, there is the opportunity to meet the projects. I'm going to draw this to your attention now because the projects change every day. So do make sure that when you see the projects there today, you do actually put some time aside to go and see them and have a chat, because they won't be there tomorrow. There'll be another 2 projects. There is also the wonderful Mission Soil competition to look at as well. When we come back in the room, we're going to start to look at policies, hear what policymakers have achieved and what is on the table and how landowners and land users are reacting to those policies. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us take a short break. Go and help yourself to a cup of coffee. We'll be starting again in half an hour at 11:30. Thank you very much. Thank you.